Hello, my actually not even zero viewer who's listening out there. This is the Rewind the Film podcast. Yeah, usually you do a podcast with more than one person, but I am extremely lonely and have no friends. So we will be doing this by ourselves until someone befriends me. But yeah, this podcast reviews cinema in the past, mostly superhero films, because superhero films are cinema. For all you Tarantino fans out there, um, going over the good, the bad, and as Black Nerd says, the nerdy, but also the average films, and going over them and seeing how I could improve or fix the films. Even the best films in superhero media can be fixed and can be improved on. Speaking of, we will be starting today with Captain America Civil War, which I consider a top 5 MCU movie. Now, you might be saying, why don't you start with the bad films? I don't want to give myself a headache. And Incredible Hulk, Thor the Dark World, I don't feel like starting with that today, or Captain Marvel. So I'll get to that later. But let's start with a good film. Civil War starts with the new Avengers squad, Wanda, Falcon, Black Widow, Cap, and I believe I'm missing someone, but I believe that should be all. In Lagos, which I don't know how they mispronounced it so many times in that film, trying to stop a attack by Crossbones, basically Hydra. While Hydra is over, they still have extra sleeper agents running around. Yada yada yada. They stop it. They stop the what is it? It's a vial of something that could fall. They stop that whole thing. And then Crossbones is fighting Cap. It then brings up Bucky. And like Cap, who can't, deal with anything, he immediately gets startled and easily gets fucked up. And then he blows himself up, which I'm surprised by. Crossbones. Wanda does that her whole wiggly woos thing and stupidly throws him into a building. I never got that. Couldn't she just throw him into the air or something, let him expel like that? I don't know. I just feel like that whole moment is stupid in my eyes, but it's whatever. Moving on. And then the whole Sokovia Accords happens and everything in that film, and it's a great film. Great turns. I even like Zemo. People find him unnecessary as a villain, but I actually really liked him. But what I do agree with is that a lot of people think Civil War came a little too early. Even though Captain America and Iron Man are both gone in the new phases, there's no way they would have been able to do a Civil War unless they did like Civil War 2 and did like Captain Marvel with like Rhodey. It wouldn't have been the same, so I understand why they did it, but some people feel like it should have waited until we had way more heroes. And I get that. So I was thinking, what if we had a universe where Captain America's Civil War doesn't become Civil War? It now becomes Captain America and the Falcon. Now, I don't, it's kind of like the Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I kind of like that because the first is the first Avenger, and then the second one, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and then the third one, Captain America and the Falcon. Basically, like, as everybody's brought up, all the names throughout the thing seem like code names. And, like, the last one kind of seems similar to a code name a little bit. Kind of it's like a Project Winter Soldier, Project the First Avenger, Project Captain America, and the Falcon. And even though I think this is a little bit different than improving the film, I could talk about improving the film, but I'm going to use a loophole here. I'm not improving the film, but I'm technically improving the experience. In this universe, Civil War happens down the line. Yes, it's with two different titular characters instead of Captain America and Iron Man, but it could still be two famous characters who we really like and are interesting, and with the X-Men involved, with Fantastic Four involved, with all of them involved. So, I feel like that's a better compromise. So technically, this is improving the film, like retroactively or futurely. I don't know how the word would be called, but yeah, in that way. So basically, what I have the movie be is that everything Civil War has is stripped down to its basic form, but it isn't involving the whole ensemble cast. One thing I love Civil War, but it really just feels like Avengers 3. It feels like Avengers 3, and yes, it's a Cap film, but the original Civil War comic, I didn't really read it because I'm not a comic guy. But what I will say is, from the looks of it, it seemed more like an Avengers event. It wasn't just Cap. Even though Cap was one of the main characters, it was much more of an Avengers event, or even just a Marvel event in general. And I feel like cutting this movie down to a Cap, cutting Civil War down to fully just a Cap movie, kind of takes out the stakes of it. We all know Cap is gonna become victorious at the end in some light, even though I don't think there was any winners in Captain America Civil War. Cap really comes out victorious for the most part, which means like it bought less, less to the fight. If it was like an Avengers film, I think it would have been much more interesting. You even could have used the comic title like Disassembled, like the in the comics, like in the new run. But I'm going off topic. I think that it could have been fun if you stripped down the talking points of Civil War and have it simply be. What happens is the Avengers still go on a mission. Everything in the first act is the same. They go on a mission. Wanda ends up blowing up that thing in the building. But the Sokovia Accords don't happen yet. One, I don't think there's a point of changing the name from the Sokovia Accords just because Sokovia was a thing. I'd still call it the Superhero Registration Act. So, yeah, but they're not in this timeline. Instead of them going to the UN for them to sign the Sokovia Accords, in this timeline, they're there to discuss it. It's not a signing thing, it's not even up to terms. They're just discussing different things that they should do as a country to make it more safe. So it's less of, a Sokovia Accords thing and much more of, they're discussing it. And this isn't really an Avengers film, so I don't think Iron Man isn't in it. You can throw him across the state doing something else. And to get Wanda and Vision out of the story, to lead into Infinity War, instead of them having the whole thing where they go against each other and then we just see them in Infinity War, after what happens to Wanda and Vision, by Cap's orders, go on the run in, what was it, Paris or London? They were in Infinity War. Cap tells them to go on a run, and they do, and they go and hide. That's how we meet them in Infinity War. They're living their life, and this is a great way to segue it. It both works either way. So what happens? Cap tells them to go on the run so they don't get, so Wanda doesn't get caught or arrested. They're not sure what's going to happen specifically, so Cap make sure she's okay. Some side note. I know I'm getting a little side note, but I really don't like how they retconned Wanda into a grown adult. She's like 30 right now in WandaVision. It is weird because they called her a child so many times in those early films. It is weird because, like, Cap was really treating her like a child and treating her as if she was like a daughter or something, but she was like 20 plus in those films, like 25. Even if he's 100, it's weird. It's really weird. I'm not sure if I would want to change that or whatever, but something about that got to change. Back on track. So, the UN meeting happens, and the same thing happens. Black Panther shows up, and King T'Chaka. The thing gets blown up. And then it's still by Bucky. As I said, this film is mostly staying true to what Civil War was. It's more the same-ish. It's just a couple scenes come out. We don't get the whole Avengers scene at the table thing. They just, mostly the stuff gets cut out that's with the Avengers. It's mostly more interpersonal stuff. A lot of the other Avengers are off on different duties, or different business. In this timeline also, at the end of Age of Ultron, Cap, Thor, and Iron Man are at more heads. I feel like Civil War, yes, does work as a point to like separate the group, but I feel like Age of Ultron is a much better area to separate Tony and Cap away from each other. Because the fact that they end on bad terms in Civil War, but they don't end on bad terms in Ultron doesn't make sense. Tony created a murder bot, and Cap was able to accept that, but they weren't able to accept that Bucky killed Tony's parents, even though Tony knows that he was mind controlled. I just feel like it's weird. In this timeline, Age of Ultron ends with them having much more hate towards each other. They still are cool, but they don't really love each other. That's why Tony leaves the Avengers to go do stuff on his own. So that can be like, so we still have Infinity War with them being separate, but without having to have Civil War be the reason for that. So yeah, Zemo's still in this film, if you're asking. So yeah, back to it. The UN gets bombed. We still get the Zemo storyline. He's trying to figure out where the Winter Soldier is. But there's a difference. In the original film, he wasn't trying to save super soldiers. He was trying to break the Avengers. In this film, I'm changing it up a bit. In Age of Ultron, Cap is the one that checks to see if everybody is off the Sokovia planet or whatever, or a little piece of land before they leave. The thing is, Cap, in a moment of not grace for his character, Zemo's about to go get his family. He sees that they're on there. And the Cap thinks that his family already get put on the boats and that everybody was already saved. But in reality, they weren't. They were still on the rock. They get blown up when Thor hits the hammer and Iron Man does the blast thing. Whatever happens at the end. Sorry, it's been a while since I watched it. Not a while, but But basically, Cap does not check to see if the family's there. Mostly because he doesn't really have enough time, since it will drop soon. But also because he just wants to get out of there with the people safe. So he says that he thinks they're on there, but they weren't. This way, the tension is only towards Cap. He hates Cap, which makes the whole he wants to get back at Cap much more interesting. Because in other contexts, it doesn't really make sense. He should only be mad at Tony, even though I'm not even sure if he knows Tony created Ultron. But yeah. So in this timeline, he's mad at Cap for causing his family to be gone, which allows the rivalry to be there. So yes, everything happens. Bucky supposedly blows up the UN and Black Panther goes after him. It's basically the same wild goose chase that we had in this film. Exactly the same. Just instead of Rhodey coming to stop them, it's just the government right in there pointing guns at them. They get taken in, and Cap is considered getting arrested. Tony's still away. Then they have the whole Bucky thing where they interrogation him. Zemo does the whole wiggly woo, the other words that are in Russian, I think, that he says that activates the Winter Soldier. We get the whole fight scene. You just take out Iron Man from it. It's mostly the same. And this is where the changes really come up. In this timeline, Zemo gets away with Winter Soldier. Cap doesn't save him and then just traps him. No. Zemo's goal in this isn't to kill super soldiers like it was in reality. He wants to kill super soldiers in our timeline or in our MCU timeline. But in this one, he's okay with them. He just uses them to manipulate them. He still has the goal to kill them, but he wants to use them to their fullest ability so that he can manipulate them to his best. So, he gets away with Bucky. Just like how he wanted to kill the other super soldiers, he gets Bucky so that he can not so he can get the footage about Tony's parents, but so that he could find where the other super soldiers are, not to kill them, but to use them to go against Cap. So Bucky and Zemo get away on the plane. Cap isn't able to take it down. They fly away. Cap has to let go. Cap and Sam make a run for it without their devices, without their suits and everything. So we still get the whole Sharon thing where she gives them the stuff back and they kiss. Even though I feel like if he's going to go back in time in the Endgame, I feel like you should have it be like a moment where they almost kiss, but they stop due to the fact that they know that they both, uh, you know, have Peggy a little bit on them, rubbing on them. Let me stop. But yeah, so we can still have that moment where Carter, Sharon gives them their suits later. Just Bucky's not in the car that time, but getting ahead of myself. Sam and Cap puts a tracker on the plane to keep up the whereabouts so that he can know where it's going. And he sees that it's going across the country. So Sam and Cap both go across the country to go take down him before he causes more trouble with Bucky and puts him in danger. While Black Panther also goes to look for him, putting a tracker on Bucky, looking for him, trying to kill him for killing King T'Chaka, supposedly. So they're going across the country on a wild goose chase while the government is after them. The government's after them. Plus, they go over some Hydra agents. This seems troublesome since they can't take down all of them. So, with Cap knowing a little bit about Wakanda, he shows up at their front door, knocks, or whatever the bubble equivalent to knocking is, and Black Panther attacks them. This is where we get our second fight between Cap and Black Panther, but Falcon's here now. Falcon was there the first time, but he wasn't really fighting. We get a full fight between them two. Black Panther's able to outclass them with his years of training and plus his serum, but they are able to handle themselves. And then they stop. Captain America tries to reason with him about what truly happened. He tries to explain to him that Bucky didn't actually kill him and he's being framed by the dude who helped him escape and who put the wiring in his head. Black Panther doesn't want to believe him, but will do anything to get to Bucky, so he works with them since they both don't really have leads. Even though he put the tracker in it, since he knows that he can't really take Bucky by himself, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, he joins up with them. Also, this is where they learn and do research. We meet Shuri in this film instead of in Black Panther. She does research and finds out about the super soldier program. I probably should have said this before I said the previous thing, but she finds out about the other super soldier program with Winter Soldier. These other super soldiers that were created that are as or better than Bucky in fighting style. And she knows that they're deployed in this specific area close to where Zemo is going. I'm not going to do the same building because I feel like that was a good fight choreography for that fight, but I feel like it needs to be a plain area where all of them can go at it. So yeah. So Black Panther realizes that he can't do this by himself and aligns with them to take down the super soldiers, but to also take down Bucky as a secret mission because he wants to kill him, still not believing that he's not the one that killed his father. So they go on, get there, and then get into the area. It's an old SHIELD / Hydra base where they trained them. It's bigger than the one that we got in Civil War. Much huger, much more of a platform, much more of a training area. And it's interesting, they walk in, they see something, and then Zemo's voice come on the speaker. He explains to them that this was all his little game. He explains to Cap that this is his fault, that what he did in Sokovia wasn't right, and says if he just let him go back for his family, or at least die with his family, he would have been much better in life. And then he turns on the super soldiers and sends them after them. Now, in this version, I probably have it be 4 super soldiers. I believe there was 5 in the original. I was terribly considering adding Nat, since Nat was in the early events. I didn't kick Nat out of this film since she didn't have to go on the run. So I'm in between whether I'm adding Nat and Nat takes a plane ride to here to help Steve in this fight, which I think would likely be the case. Nat shows up in the Avengers Quinjet on top of the building, showing up, helping the fight go on. And then I'm sorry for these huge pauses. I need some time to think. I'm low-key going off the fly with this one. And then he sends the super soldiers on them, even Bucky. And now it's 4 against, what is it, 5? Yeah, because if at Bucky, 4 against, I'll probably do 6 so that it can be even. One, the reason why I made it a less crowded area and more like an outside base, like it's like the base we saw in Winter Soldier, just similar to that where they can go outside, is because Falcon's abilities is much more enhanced in the outside area than it is here. And I feel like this can be our version of the airport fight, where it's like a bunch of powerful characters coming after each other. So I think that would be an interesting concept. Can y'all hear me? I keep putting my mic away from my face. I'm praying that all of this is being picked up, because I do not want to record this episode again. I will, but, I mean, if it doesn't pick up, I will, but praying it does. But yeah. They start the fight inside, but then they later move it outside to work to Falcon's strengths. They're fighting, and they finally get Bucky back to Overside to get the protocol out of him. Bucky's protocol gets changed. Zemo starts getting worried. Bucky joins them, and they start fighting them. They're pretty well handling them. And Zemo starts to get worried. So what he does, he tries to turn them on each other. He tries to turn Black Panther onto Winter Soldier again. He tries to make him think that Winter Soldier did something wrong to allow him to get away, so that there can be more chaos. He tries to plant ideas, but it doesn't work. And he tries to escape in another helicopter. Actually, no. Sorry. Rewind. He tries to get away so that he can kill himself. He distracts the fight with and with all the things that was happening. He gets into the top of the building. Black Panther, knowing that the team's going to win the fight, runs up there after him. And we get the same conversation that we got in Civil War, where Black Panther stops him from killing himself and puts him in jail. And they take down the super soldiers, but the police put a tracking chip on the captain's clothes, or the captain's uniforms, before they were stolen, knowing that Sharon would do it, because she knows that how close he was to her. After they're done beating the super soldiers and all of that, Zemo sets an off button, killing them before they can just take them in and help their minds fix them. So they're dead. The government's there. So Cap knows the government fully is on a man chase for him. They've been on his tail for this long. He's been having to avoid them, run after them, and also deal with Hydra. And he realizes that he needs to go undercover. Him, Nat, and Sam all leave in the Quinjet. All leave in the Quinjet to get into hiding just like in the future films in Infinity War where they're off the grid with each other, this sets up that part. And then Zemo gets tied up and gets stayed there and is given to the American government. Cap and Falcon take the trackers off their suits, and Black Panther, in end look of goodness, takes Winter Soldier and takes him to Wakanda to get him fixed. In the post-credit scene, we get the same post-credit scene from the film. And Zemo is arrested, and we get the whole thing where he's like, to Everett Ross, you lost. And he's like, did I? Knowing that he split apart Bucky and Cap for whatever now. Knowing that in this time, Bucky, Cap can't even see his friend anymore. He can't go back to the Avengers because if he goes to Wakanda, he'd likely get spotted and reported. So now he can't see his friend for further notice. And is now on the run from the police. And that's all Zemo wanted. He wanted Cap to feel just as bad as he did when he blew up his family. As I said, post-credit scenes, it's the same one as before with Black Panther and Shuri trying to fix his brain and take away his psychological problems. And I'm thinking of a second post-credit scene, probably something related to a future film. So maybe a Iron Man cameo where he talks about what went down, or maybe a conversation between Cap on the phone, similar to the ending of Civil War. That's it. Hopefully that was good enough for y'all to comprehend, because I said that in 27 minutes, so I'm not sure if I was rambling. But to more deep down, in this film, actually, running back, so that's basically the end. I think that would have been an interesting way to have the Cap trilogy not just feel like an Avenger film, not end on like some Avengers film, and end on more of a Cap note. It can also end in tragedy with them having to separate. It can also still lead into Infinity War with Captain America and Iron Man feuding. Everything in Infinity War can stay the place. It can still be separate. And you don't have to use up Civil War without other characters. Because as people brought up, even though I didn't care, they brought up that the airport fight felt hollow since it didn't have that many heroes. Even though I liked it. They may be right. Maybe they did need more heroes. So this fixes that. I feel like it also is still a good film. It has the basic core of Civil War, just much more of a Cap-centric film. But also, I forgot to add this part, it's also a Falcon film. This is really his but his opening to him taking the Cap title. This is the film where Cap realizes that Sam is the perfect next guy to take up the Cap mantle. We get a lot of character development for Sam here. We learn about his family. We learn a little more about Riley and what happened with him dealing with partners. We learn about Sam's motives. We learn just more about Sam as a character. We get into his psyche. We learn what he's about. We learn why he's so eager to help Steve. He doesn't have to. He doesn't really need to. He can just go by himself, but he's looks up to Steve in a way. And this is what makes Steve feel as if he's the perfect candidate to become Cap. This sets up his series perfectly. Also, I think this could be a way to like give him an upgrade, give him a new suits, give him new details, a part of his suits. That would be interesting. I feel like that would be an interesting way to give him new details. It's also a Cap going away party. It really shuts a door on the Cap series, shutting this door on his story, fully ending it on his terms, giving him a shut case on his story. I think there's some things in the Cap story that are fixed with this rewrite. I don't think Sharon and Cap should have kissed, or Sharon and Steve, since we have a new Cap and, Sam. I don't think Sharon and Steve should have kissed. I feel like it should have been a relationship that almost happened, but they stopped themselves due to what Cap found out about her. I think that's what should have happened. It one doesn't make the whole dynamic weird of him going back in the past and banging her, what is it, great aunt, and also it allows us to not hate the ending in Endgame where he goes back when he easily could have just dated Sharon. It doesn't start something that they're not intending on finishing. I feel like this is a much better way to have it where we know the relationship is implied in some way, but we know it's not actually gonna happen. I feel like this is much more interesting. Also, I feel like in this climax, you can more so become Peggy eccentric. Talk about how Peggy really affected his life. Because I feel like a lot of people's problem with Endgame is that he goes back for a girl he barely knew. But if you can turn the Cap trilogy, instead of just being him always saving Winter Soldier, but make it an allegory for him trying to save the past. Him trying to save his past as best as he could. When in reality, he can just go back in Endgame. It makes his Endgame ending makes more sense. If instead of us thinking of him just simply in this trilogy trying to save Bucky, and more him trying to reclaim what he had in the past, and he figures that out throughout the film, and that's what leads him to go back in time when he has the chance. It much gives him a more satisfying arc. Because it feels weird of it just being him trying to save his best friend. I get you try to save your best friend, but that doesn't feel deep enough. I feel like it should be he's trying to save the past that he always wanted. Because you can't just pretend as if him going to the future didn't affect him. So, I feel like that's a much better allegory. I feel like you can have almost everything stay the same, develop all the characters, and this feels like a good way to save Civil War for when you best need it down the future. You don't need it now. You don't need to rush it in. And you don't need it to make a Cap film. I think just Civil War as the title of a film. Nothing else. Not Avengers, not Cap, not Captain America, not Iron Man, whatever. Just Civil War as a title works much better. You don't know who's going to win. And especially since this isn't going to be Iron Man versus Cap, now you know exactly that this is going to be different. It's going to be based off the comics. Just like Infinity War was loosely based off the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. But it's not really based on it. You can use different characters. You can use different heads. You can have Spider-Man and, I don't know, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man and Thor. You can have two guys with different ideas of, thought process go up against each other. And giving the Superhero Registration Act time to breathe. Giving it time to, breathe so it's a slow burn. So when they get it there, it's truly meaningful. I feel like if it just happens in this film quickly, it kind of makes it seem as if this is such a quick decision by the government. But if it starts in Civil War and then reaches to the climax over years of all of this happening, one, a lot of the inconsistencies in the future MCU doesn't become inconsistent. Spider-Man becoming a hero in 2017 makes sense, even though the government would go after him. Him not joining the Avengers and not becoming the Avengers, the government would go after him. Infinity War, the government's after Steve, but it's for what he did, abiding a criminal, not because against this Registration Act, which makes more sense. And Wanda's a fugitive because she blew up a building and didn't solve her crimes. Because I feel as if Civil War kind of not abstains their crimes, but makes it seem as them violating the Superhero Act is worse than the crimes that they actually committed. Wanda blew up a building with multiple people. She should face consequences for that. Steve abetted a criminal. He should face consequences for that. And you may be like, Tony didn't face consequences for Ultron. Well, realistically, they haven't made it clear that they know Tony created Ultron. So you could easily the Avengers cover that up as Ultron being a bot from old bot from Hydra Shield that was brought up. That can be covered, but this can't. I feel like the government shouldn't just be going after them because of the superhero or Sokovia Accords or what I want to call it, Superhero Registration Act. I think they should be going after them because they actually committed crimes, and it makes much more sense. So you don't have to force the Sokovia Accords in Infinity War, even though it doesn't really matter. This way, they're just criminals. Also, we don't have to deal with the whole Rhodey injury, which was terrible. I don't want to see that ever again, honestly. That gave me PTSD, honestly. But yeah, as I was saying, I feel as if this film, one, develops Sam's character way more in preparedness for him becoming Cap in his series. I think this also fleshes out Steve's character and fleshes out his character arc so people aren't so confused in Endgame. I feel like it doesn't use Civil War as a concept too soon and tries to like fit it in, even though it could work later down the line with way more heroes. And I feel like it still has the same charm and the same action and the same bite as the original Civil War film without it being Civil War. As I said, I would call it Captain America and the Falcon. Falcon and Captain America would be more like co-stars instead of Falcon feeling much more like a side character. I'd make Falcon much more of a main character in this film, really. I'd make him much more of the guy. And I think that would be much more interesting. I think the idea of Sam developing through the films and becoming his own man and becoming much more of a main character to the point where he becomes the main character, the main character in his own series and then in his movie would be a great progression through his story. Also, I feel like the super soldiers in that film were put to waste. Let's talk about concept. Also thought about using the Serpent Society because in, 2014, the teaser for Captain America 3 was that they were going to do Serpent Society, but then Kevin Feige changed it. He announced it, and then he changed it to Civil War. I was going to do a thing where, I'm not sure exactly how the Serpent Society works, but my version was going to be, there was a alternative version of the super soldier serum. Since they didn't know exactly how to recreate it, they used animals to recreate the serum, creating different serpent beings, serpent-related super soldiers. This also would have led to what happened in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is what I thought was gonna happen. I thought Joaquin Torres was gonna get captured by the Power Broker, and was going to be given a animal dosed version of the super soldier serum, which would make him much more comic accurate as the Falcon. Even though that didn't happen, this pathway could lead to that, but I wasn't sure if that would really work. I think I would have had to have a better understanding of the Serpent Squad, but in general, I just feel like the Winter Soldiers were underused. I feel like if you can use them well, give them personality, and use them in a good manner, it could really do good for this film. And I feel like it still has the edge. Cap fighting Bucky, them going head to head in this point would have been interesting, in my opinion. It would have been an interesting takeaway. But yeah. So basically rundown. Basically the same film. Beginning part similar. We cut out the extra stuff where they talk about the Accords. They talk about it possibly happening and arresting Wanda. But the more focus is on arresting Wanda and Cap. Wanda and Vision go hide in London, setting up their appearance in Infinity War. Cap goes to Peggy's funeral and then hears about what happened at the UN. Sees that it was Bucky, goes after him, helps him. That whole fight sequence is about the same. They get caught. Tony isn't there this time, but Zemo still uses those trigger words. Blah, 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 gets Bucky out there. They go on a trip to get the other super soldiers. Falcon and Cap discover themselves while also discussing their partnership, discussing everything, going through ups and downs. I want to see their relationship be really tested in this thing. Relationship like the strength of it. I want to see it go through problems, go through, you know, stepping stones like Tony and Cap's relationship. Them learn more about each other and learn more about their partnership. To give them much more obstacles to fight, I'm going to have the government one be after them, plus two Hydra agents who are mad that they killed ex-Hydra agents who are mad that they killed Crossbones after them. It's a much way to get them like fighting for a bit, but also have them chill. They don't have any leads. They lose the tracker, so they go to Wakanda. Black Panther. We get a decent big fight between them three. Shuri appears in the film. She reveals the super soldiers. Black Panther aligns with them just so he could go kill Bucky. Then they get there. Nat gets there on the jet. They fight. Cap figures out why Zemo hates him. Blah, 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 blah. They fight the super soldiers. Zemo tries to go and kill himself while they're fighting. Black Panther stops him. They take down the super soldiers, knock them out. Then the government starts coming in after Steve. Steve, Falcon, Nat, get the jet, get out of there. Black Panther ties up Zemo and gives it to the American government, even though he wants to take them to Wakanda. He doesn't. And then he also takes Bucky. He chooses taking Bucky and fixing him over Zemo. That's better. There's only one place on the plane. It's a smaller plane. He chooses saving Bucky and saving his mentality over arresting Zemo and putting him in a Wakanda prison, showing his growth throughout this film and him losing his taste for vengeance. So yeah, and I feel like that would have been a great filler and could have kept the MCU the exact way it can and still been interesting. So yeah, that would have been my rewrite for Captain America Civil War becoming Captain America and the Falcon. Hope y'all liked it. I really think that's a great new version of the film. I think it gives us much more of Sam, which I love. Also, this film could introduce his ability to throw the shield at least a decent bit. Like, they had a deleted scene with him throwing the shield to Steve. I wish, like, they could show him throwing the shield a little bit, not to where he's great at it, so he still needs the training montage in the show, but where he has some familiarity with Steve that they can tag team with it. Also, we give Falcon some new weapons and some new suits to upgrade in some cases to his suit. Better than it was in Civil War and more enhanced. So we can have him be more enhanced, improving. Yeah. I love it. Post-credit, actually, I have an idea. The post-credit scene could be the premise of Civil War in the first place. It's not going to lead to Civil War, but the post-credit scene is Zemo has a firewall that he sends once he gets captured. One, he kills the super soldiers, and two, he sends a message to Tony Stark about his parents. And then in Homecoming, we get, like, him hating Cap. We don't fully get it, but we see that he clearly doesn't like Cap anymore, and he doesn't talk to him. He doesn't answer his calls, and they don't talk. And in this way, Cap doesn't figure out the reason why Tony doesn't talk to him until Endgame. It makes that moment where he says, "We'll lose together" in Endgame much more strong, because he comes to him and says, "You knew my parents were dead, and you knew Bucky did it, but you never told me. And you know what? Unless I found out, you never were going to tell me." It makes that moment such harder to deal with in Endgame. It makes it much more of a demented relationship. This way, Tony's had years to deal with it and is able to move on, but this way the relationship is much more damaged. And this way we know Cap doesn't just not want to hear from Tony, it's that Tony physically is just not answering him. I feel like it leaves the mystery of what's wrong with their relationship to Cap, and it makes it much more of an interesting dynamic, and it proves that Tony's stubbornness is exactly what gets him killed. I really like this replacement. I feel like it puts more edge in the MCU. It also fills everything that they needed. But yeah, I really love this. I really love this concept, this film, and everything. I'm not sure if anybody's gonna watch this first episode. This may be relic in the history, but if anybody does, give me a recommendation of what I should watch. Civil War was mostly off my head. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, so I knew the plot and most details of it off the brink, but a lot of the movies I need to rewatch and see. I eventually want to get to the bad MCU movies, but there's also bad DCU movies, even good ones. I low-key want to get to Birds of Prey. I might do that next, but I have to rewatch it because I have an interesting concept for that film that you guys might want to hear about. So, that will likely be episode 2. I just had to rewatch it. So, yeah. Thank you for listening to the... What is this called again? Rewind the Film. Yeah, Rewind the Film podcast. Yeah, I've been talking for a while. Thank you for listening. And to my one and only viewer, who is my mom, clearly, thank you for coming. I hope this can become something, because I really enjoyed it. Thank you, and good night, because I'm filming this in the middle of the night. It's kind of bad. Yeah, I'm just going to go. All right, bye.